Pass the Baton On by Angela Benson, Menai 2234. Narrated by Chloe Schwank. "Ah, my girl, picking the peas again, I see." The voice boomed over the top of me, making me jump. Before I could reply, my granddad continued saying, "You do realize that if you eat all the little ones, they won't grow into big ones, and Grandma won't have enough to feed your Ma and Pa when they come back next weekend to pick you up, don't you?" My 6-year-old self looked up at him sheepishly and replied with a pouting face, "But Granddad, I love them so much." My mother had told me he was an ogre, but I'd never believed her. This was because I could remember a time in my life when I was younger, when my grandfather had swept me off my feet, carried me lovingly out of his living room, up the very narrow staircase to the bedroom upstairs, having berated all the adults in the room, saying, "This is no place for a wee little child with all you so-called adults arguing like that." Then telling me gently to go to sleep, which I must have done. With the ogre right in front of me and those damning pea pods on the ground, there was only one way out of it for 6-year-old me. I had to take his hand and draw him away from the scene of the crime and get him to show me the rest of the garden he was so proud of. He complied, probably with a wry smile on his face, and said, "Well, let's start down in the front garden and work our way back up." The front garden wasn't my favorite place, with all the potatoes, cabbages, Brussels sprouts, and other kinds of boring vegetables, but I listened carefully as he told me all about them. Making our way back up into the sunny backyard, we came to the strawberries, yum, and to the rhubarb and fruit trees. He walked me around the pear, apple, and plum trees, as well as the damson and currant bushes, and I was in 7th heaven when he said I could pick the currants as much as I liked, because they grew quickly. As I grew older, I found that my grandfather had instilled in me a deep love of gardening. Wherever I have lived, I've tried to emulate his garden, but, unfortunately, have never had enough room or the right conditions. After all, back then I did grow up in wetter England with large garden plots, hence why I've not had much success. However, this begs the question, is it what you grow or how you pass the baton on that is the most important? It seems more important to me now that I believe I have passed that baton on. My now 8-year-old granddaughter often spends the morning with me in the garden on a weekend, trimming up the brown leaves or part thereof because she doesn't like the brown parts, a trait she's inherited from me. Her favourite foods are blueberries and tomatoes, which keep her searching for them over a period of 5 months while fruiting. She still tends to a small garden we formed on a large ceramic platter when she was 18 months old. Her favourite book for a long while was My Grandma's Garden. Like her grandma, she likes to microscope and find the smallest plant growing there, and she's often rewarded with a tiny succulent that has just started. She's watching with anticipation the new peach tree I've bought and put in a large pot. She didn't like the fact that most of the leaves had fallen off, probably due to the snails I found at the bottom of its original pot, bought at Bunnings. She can't wait till it grows peaches and she gets to eat them. For the time being, however, we were both excited when we noticed the 2 new little leaves growing out the top. She doesn't really understand yet the joy for me of having my own peach tree again. I've only had 2 before. One I grew in England from a seed when I was her age, against a tenement wall where the heat from the fire on that wall kept the snow from around its roots. She will never know my father's delight when one summer, before we came to Australia, it grew 1 peach. The second tree was already in situ in the garden of my husband and my first home in Australia, which gave our family lovely peaches for many years. So, my granddaughter and I now wait together with bated breath to see if we can grow peaches on a new-fangled columnar peach tree. Now there is a current story on peas. When my granddaughter discovered I was growing snow peas successfully, she asked if she could pick some and have them with her dinner. So, There she was, peeling them and trying to remove the tiny little peas from inside the pods. She looked at me like I was the ogre when I laughed at her, saying, "They're not supposed to be peeled, you just eat the lot." Her response, "Why didn't you tell me?" was delivered with a very grumpy, embarrassed face. So now the questions are, will she pass the baton on? Will she remember what was taught to her by her grandmother, or remember with fondness the times we had, like I did with my grandfather? I didn't know then, when I was 6 years old, that my grandfather's love of the garden came from the fact he was a miner and didn't see the sunlight with the days spent deep down in a mine. My hope now is that my granddaughter gets a garden and child of her own she can pass the baton on to. The end.